Good morning.
I decided to actually come on a little earlier today so that I can take most of the attendance before class officially starts. Make it a little smoother here. Alrighty, and sorry it took me so long to get the readings up last night. To be perfectly honest, I meant to nap for an hour and I napped for an hour and 40 minutes yesterday afternoon, so apologies. I'm human too, and it doesn't always go the way I want it. But hopefully everybody was able to at least skim them, and if not, you can certainly pull them up while you're in your groups looking at things. We'll give it just another couple minutes to see if other people come in. I think we have 2 or 3 people who aren't here yet, just because I want to be able to explain what we're doing today, our first discussion day, to all of you. So while we're waiting, does anyone have any questions about the class in general, readings, anything like that? All right, cool. Well, I'll start talking about how discussion days will work since this is our first one. So they'll sometimes be a little different, but typically what we'll do is we'll start with you all being split into breakout rooms in Zoom. So if you haven't done that before, what will happen is I'll randomly assign you, and then you'll get a little thing from Zoom that says, hey, the leader, they call me, is asking you to go to, breakout room 2, and just click OK, and it'll take you into a room. And there will typically be about 4 of you in a room, sometimes 5. I am going to share your assignment now. And what you should do is you can all open it, but just designate one person from your group to be your note taker. Or since it is a Google Doc, if you want to share your version with it, I'm going to give you the link where you just copy it. So it'll open one that you won't be writing on the same one everybody else is trying to write on. So what you can do is you could share it with the other members of your group and then take turns writing, however you all want to do it in your group. And what you'll see is there's at least one question about each reading you did for today. So you should discuss it and take notes for your entire group. And then whoever is the main person keeping track of things, you will share the document with me by the end of class so that I can give you points. And essentially, as long as your group has made a good faith effort to answer each question, you get 10 points. So it's essentially just a documentation of what you've been doing. So I'll give you about 20 minutes. We'll see how that goes. If we need longer, I can put you back into your breakout rooms. But about 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes, you'll get a 60-second countdown to the room's closing, so it's kind of like 21 minutes. And I'm going to stay in the main room, And so if you have any questions, you're kind of stuck in your group, you don't know how to answer something, there's an option in the bottom right where you can like leave the breakout room, go back to the main room, and you can come and ask me a question, and then you can go back to your breakout room and talk to your group. Once you're in your breakout room, anything you write in the chat only goes to the people in your breakout room, so it won't go to me. This has been working pretty well. I even did this with my intro class the other day, and there were 32 of them, and it worked, so woohoo! So I am going to see if you all have any questions before I assign you to the groups. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing? Awesome. And while you are in the breakout rooms, it doesn't record you all, so I'll just pause our recording here so you don't have 20 minutes of me just sitting here. So let me go ahead and get those set up. So I'm going to put you into 4 breakout rooms. That'll be 4 or 5 people per room. That usually works out pretty well. And then I am going to, under options, set it automatically to give you 20 minutes. The other thing that I'll do occasionally is I can broadcast a message to all of you. It'll show up in like a little blue rectangle at the top of the screen. So I might be like, hey, 10 minutes left. So that's something else to just kind of keep an eye out for. Again, if you have any problems, just bop back to the main room and I will be here. So everyone have fun talking about our readings for today. And then when you all come back, we'll discuss them as a whole. So you should be getting your invitation now and just click OK, and you will head over to your room. Looks like group 4 was on it.
I'll finish this through y'all's ideas.
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. So yeah, we'll do something like that every time we have a discussion. And the breakout rooms are a nice alternative, especially for doing things in person. You don't have to yell at each other from 6 feet apart. It does work out pretty well. So what I'm going to start with, and I'll screen share our questions just to help you all with that, is I'm going to have each group answer one of the questions, and then we'll all kind of talk about 5 if we get there. We'll see. We have about 15 minutes of class left. So we start with, since they were on top of things, I'm going to have group 4 talk first about question 1. So do you think the dinner party conversation method of collecting data about a person that McAdams informally employed is a good way to do so, and why or why not? And so one person can talk, or everybody from your group can talk.
We were group 4 the first time, but group 2 the second time. So first time group 4?
I think second time group 4 was the people who came back early, right?
Yeah, so basically what we were saying about it is that we didn't think it was a good way to like collect data about someone because you're gonna act differently in different situations. So like you can't form your opinion or jump to any conclusions about somebody just from the info you got in that setting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did any other group have anything else you thought about it?
We kind of talked about too, sorry.
Go.
All right. We kind of talked about too how a dinner conversation isn't really a safe space for someone to unearth like deeper parts of their identity to someone they don't know. So, you can find out surface level traits and ideas about them, but there's really no way to kind of parse deeper issues within an individual.
Right. And, as you see from the example of the person that they look at throughout this dinner party, right? Like things like alcohol, right, are going to influence how you present yourself, right? So some people are, it sounds like she was the type of drunk who like her barriers go down. Some people are sleepy drunks, right? Some people are really happy drunks, but, crabby other times. Some people are reckless drunks. We have a friend who has asthma, but when he's drunk, he smokes. Seems like a horrible idea, right? So, I think that's a really good point. And obviously, also the other thing is this is impractical, right? Like you can't do this much detail unless you have them as a therapy client, right? If you're going to be doing research on them, this is not the best way to do it. All right, so let's have group one, which was both Amanda's, Carly, Hope, and Megan, talk about question 2.
So for question 2, I'm just going to read exactly what we wrote so I don't miss out on what anyone was thinking. So we wrote, it would be negligible to disqualify all traits when considering people's personalities. Traits can be interchangeable based on an environment, and certain individual traits are typically more prominent during like certain environments. So when thinking of someone's personality, we often think of what traits they exhibit during specific like environments and specific interactions.
Yeah. How about this is the one where it's, more opinion. Any other groups come up with something different? Everybody kind of on the same page. This is a question you'll get asked repeatedly throughout the semester as we get new information about traits. Because believe it or not, the whole concept of personality traits is actually kind of controversial in psychology. So it's important to kind of think each step as you get into new information, how does this influence what I'm thinking about it? All right, so let's have the group that's Dylan, Macy, Miranda, Romina, and Shamir do question 3 about a Weserian meal study. What do you think it'd be like to carry out this study, and what problems could arise in a study like this?
We talked about the budget difficulties. It would be really expensive just because if you're having someone analyze all that information you're getting, because I think it's 30 seconds every 12 minutes. That's a long time. So you would need to have people analyzing that. And we also said that it would be hard to identify what's going on sometimes, so you could misinterpret it. So someone gave the example, I think it was Miranda, but I'm not sure, that, for example, they could be watching TV and you think they're having a conversation because you only have 30 seconds, or the other way around.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And also, they let the participants pick and choose out of what was recorded, what gets sent in, so they could be removing an argument that they had with someone and send it in, and then that's completely messing up the data.
Yeah, that's kind of
it's just
we said. We were saying that typically people like to display themselves in a positive light, so they're not going to just voluntarily give you information that might portray them otherwise. They're going to want to give you the stuff that makes them seem like nice and how they want to be seen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think Miranda, you had something too?
Yeah, it's just like the ethical nature of monitoring someone's day-to-day life is difficult because you can't do it without them knowing. And then like we wrote, you know, the difficulties would be numerous due to privacy constraints and knowledge of the EAR. Participants' behavior may have been actively changed as identified of their reports of slight constraints and moderate discomfort while wearing the recorder. So, you know, they're not gonna act necessarily, like if they don't know when this thing is recording them, they might just choose to speak less, or, you know, I actively not engage with, you know, certain people, or, you know, things like that. And then, yeah, as I think Macy said, they could only assess acoustically detectable behaviors, as quoted. So,
Yeah.
and also 4 days is not that long of a time to identify someone's like long-term habits and traits and personality.
Yeah, like what if you were just having a really crappy time, or what if you were sick, right, and just like staying in bed the whole time? Yeah, I'm gonna throw a term in the chat. You guys have probably heard about this before if you've taken physics. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle was really developed to talk about electrons, that essentially you can either know how fast an electron is going or where it is, but it applies in things like psychology too. So essentially it's like, you can't study something without changing it. So yeah, if people know they're carrying this thing around, right, they might change how they behave. Yeah. And so that's another thing to kind of think about here is, what would it be like to be a participant in this, right? Would it be super awkward? Would you sort of change your behavior based on that?
I was thinking just now, I didn't say this before, so it might be not articulate at all, but there's certain things that we do in private that we don't like other people to see. So in case our participant includes that and sends that out, also, what does that say about their personality? Not only the fact that they're engaging in certain activity, but the fact that they're choosing to show certain things to the researcher, things that wouldn't normally show. What does that say about their personality? That they're choosing to show certain things. I don't know. It's just a thought, but.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You know, like, is that in and of itself somehow indicative of their personality? Yeah, it's a really good point that y'all are raising about it, and it really gets at the heart of like, how do we measure these things in psychology well, right? It's really tough to do so.
Yeah, and then one more thing that I just thought of too is there's still some like ethical privacy issues in that if I'm having a conversation with my mom and my mom is telling me about her job in which she works in foster care, then those people are all now, you know, their privacy is kind of airing out in a conversation that was had in confidence. You know,
Right.
that kind of goes into the whole, like, they can choose to censor, but, you know, that's still a lot.
Yeah, so then, like, do you as a participant have to disclose to everyone in your life, I'm wearing this microphone, and how does that affect how they react with you, right? I want to make sure we get to all the questions. So our last group that hasn't covered one, looks like they were group 3. Who gets to decide who is eminent in psychology, and why is that potentially problematic?
Were we group 3? I know I didn't pay attention.
It looks like, yeah, Ania, Debbie, Haley, Kenzie, and Savea. Sorry, I totally made it Spanish.
So we said, you know, for years, it's the people who are deciding who is eminent, who is important, were old white men, and predominantly they're saying that other old white men are the most important leaders and, you know, drivers of psychology and change in the community, but they completely ignored a huge other population, including people of color and women. And also by saying that these people who, you know, yeah, did good work and made important contributions, are like, these are the ones that are important. You know, it is also completely negating the hard work that these other psychologists have done, especially through the hardships of their life, the way they're being treated, the fact that they're not getting respect. And so we like that this is starting to change, that other aspects are being brought into it, but also, you know, eminence is very, very subjective. So who I think is important may not be who you think is important.
Yeah, and certainly your subfield in psychology would influence that, right? So if you're a clinician, you're probably much more likely to think of clinicians like people like Rogers, who they mentioned here. I mean, the thing that shocked me that, you know, Aaron Beck wasn't on here, and I think if you redid this study today, he'd be way up there because of all the influence he's done. We'll talk about him later in the semester. But yeah, and then, you know, oftentimes people of color or BIPOC folks and women, people of other genders who even are on this research, it's just assumed they weren't the major contributors. So my undergrad professors, Michael Levine and Linda Smolak, did a lot of great work on eating disorders together, and they just alternated order. So like one time he'd be first author, one time she'd be first author. And because on one of their studies that got really popular, she was second author, everyone was like, oh, are you his wife? Oh, are you his grad student? And she's like, nope, co-author, right? So yeah, I think that that's a really important point to keep in mind. And for our last few minutes, I'll open it up to everybody. What did you think of the Pitchford article? I love this article. And actually, this article will really help for defining the mind, because some of the people that are mentioned in here are actually characters in our Defining the Mind at the end of the semester. So what surprised you? What didn't you know about BIPOC people and in particular Black psychologists?
Wait, Ramina said something that I want to bring up because it was super cool. Also, I apologize if I just said your name wrong. But she said, psychology has always been a way of normalizing, and deciding what isn't normal can be a dangerous thing when left in the hands of one type of people. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I never thought of psychology as a normalizing factor because it always, you know, identifies the things that aren't quote unquote normal about people. But I thought that was a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point because, yeah, pathology has been used in the past and sometimes still today to control people, to decide what's okay, what's not. And even think about, you know, like insults we throw on social media. If we don't like someone, we're saying, oh, you're psycho, right? Which, you know, like psychotic, that's actually a mental disorder, right? And, you know, think about the R word. Yeah, that people use mental health as a weapon against other people. I think that's a really good point. So, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. This article was like my favorite. I thought it was so interesting. So like, I feel like the Black psychologists kind of ruled out this whole like experimenter bias that was going on in the psychology world. Like all these white psychologists were twisting their like data, their methods and everything in order to get the results that benefited them socially. So I thought it was super interesting that they just kind of like put an end to that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's really important to know that psychology hasn't always been great, and sometimes it's been awful, right? Like eugenics was a big part of psychology for most of the 1900s, right? Yeah, so that's nice that we're pointing that out, right, and trying to change it. I'm going to find a link that I just saw the other day that shows that maybe we haven't come as far as we want, but if anyone else wants to talk while I'm finding it, please go ahead.
Yeah, what Hope just said about white psychologists changing their data to kind of, you know, say, hey, this thing that I said, I'm right. You know, my guess was right. Also reminds of, I don't remember who it was, but drapetomania, or drapetomania, however you want to say it, is the mental illness of a slave wanting to escape.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep, because why on earth would they want to do that? Yeah. Yeah, it's really problematic. So I threw the link. It actually came out in June, and it's talking about the racism that's still endemic in some psychological research. So we have a long way to go as a field, and I think the only reason we're starting to make some progress now, honestly, is the CEO of the APA is a Black man, and our current president is a woman, and our next president is actually a Black woman. So like, they are actually paying attention to these things, but it shouldn't have to be that way, right? It should be important to everyone who's in charge. So we are out of time, unfortunately. So hopefully—
Wait, last question.
Yeah.
Where do you want us to submit these?
So just share the Google Doc with me, and then that's how I will grade you. Good question. So just whoever in your group was your person who kept track, just share it with me, and then I'll give you all credit. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna let you all go, so you can get to your next classes, take a break, whatever you need to do, and I will see you on Friday.
Hey, Dr. Myers.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, can you put the grade for the meeting with you for both classes?
Yes.
Because I think you only put it in for ethics and professional issues, but I'm not sure. I saw it for one, but I didn't see it for the other, so I just wanted to remind you.
Yes, thank you for telling me that, because I've been trying to do that with people, but if I get really involved in our conversation, I sometimes miss it. So thank you.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. Thank you.
You're welcome.